Oh, wow. Oh,
It,
gosh. How many movies are you seeing a day?
um, 2 or 3. Today's my first day with no movies because I was
Oh,
just like, I need a day with like real life and food
yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to review the 20 things I've seen because I forget about that every time I do this. I'm like, yeah, I can go see 21 movies in a week. Oh,
Yeah. And then you got to do all the writing. It's like one of the most impressive things in the world to me. When
it's
somebody goes to a screening, like when something's just premiered at TIFF or Cannes or Venice or whatever, and then 12 hours later, there's a beautiful piece written about, I'm just like, how?
yeah,
I
it's
just don't understand.
I every night it's just like, okay, I'm no longer becoming sensical. Like I think everyone must assume that I just go to every dispensary in Toronto because I sound stoned at this point. And it's just
Yeah.
'cause I'm tired. It's just being tired.
Yeah, it's
But
just exhaustion. Oh
yeah,
gosh.
it was funny when I talked to Justin about this. He was like, the idea was what would be good when I was not stoned. Like it was just very funny that he was like, no, this was the plot ties in, and it was just also funny when I knew that you were in it. The very first Q&A I ever moderated was for one of your films. You weren't there, but it was Hello, I Must Be Going. It was with Blythe Danner and
Todd?
yeah, it was just very.
Oh,
It was I didn't know what I was doing at the time. It was just very funny. I was like, and
oh,
I think it was just because at the time I didn't go to Toronto. I was probably the only writer in New York who could go to the Angelica to do a Q&A.
oh my goodness. Well, that's amazing. I feel like I did every single Q&A for that movie. My best friend and I had a joke for years afterwards where she was like, what are you doing this weekend? Like 12 Q&As for Hello, I Must Be Going. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it was funny that it was that they were saying, I guess it must have been like, this is when she can do it. And I just remember distinctly, like, these questions are sometimes, some are great and some are less great. And
mm,
someone was just like, to Blythe now, like, what are you doing next? Which is always weird to ask like an older actor, like, I'm looking for work. She was like, I'm working for Obama. She was just like, I'm
oh,
giving you the most
yeah.
serious answer possible. Uh,
Oh, I love her so much.
oh
She
yeah, no,
brought me a pizza once when I had a really long day and she had wrapped. She went to a restaurant and she got the best pizza in Connecticut and she brought it to me at work.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's I feel like I'm lucky because a lot of times I get people on good behavior. But whenever you do these things where you're with someone for like a full day and you
Mm-hmm.
get them as a human being and you're like, oh wait, no, Sam Elliott is as delightful as you hope he would be, or whatever, whoever the case.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, it's good because you want everyone to be nice. Because, like you think about it, like I'm sure you've experienced like people who you're like, I wish you were nicer. But everyone is just like they're all paid millions of dollars to do something fun that you did for free as a child. There's just no
Yeah.
reason not to enjoy it.
Yeah. We're not all paid millions of dollars,
Oh,
but yeah, there's like about 10 people who are paid millions of dollars. But yeah, people are making a living doing what they've
yeah,
always loved for sure. But yeah, it is really nice when people are genuinely, especially in a situation like that. Like Hello, I Must Be Going, I think was an 18-day shoot
yeah.
and so much work and late nights and not glamorous and no money at all. So for Blythe to be gracious and kind, it was a big deal.
Totally. And I think like
Yeah.
the joke about like, oh, not everyone makes millions. I think part of the thing is also you have such good taste that you pick the roles that are good, not necessarily like, we could use you in this giant movie. And like that happens sometimes and that's cool.
Yeah.
But it does feel way more fun to be in this movie, to be like, oh, Justin wants me to play a stoner. Like that sounds like a blast. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. I I really I had worked with him before and I loved the experience and I loved him as a human. So I knew, when he asked me to do a movie with him, I was like, oh God, this is going to be really hard to say no to. But I was prepared to because I'm fussy.
Yeah.
And then it was just so funny. It just made me laugh. And I was like, I want to do this. I like the idea of playing this person. I liked her. I didn't always like everything she did or said. Like
Uh,
she's not like the most refined or kindest person always, but I really like I was like, this is a fun part.
yeah. And it's an oddly immersive character. I know that usually sounds like
Mm,
serious, like, oh, Daniel Day Lewis is playing this character. It's gonna be very immersive.
yeah.
But like the way he wrote it, and I honestly think that's what makes it more interesting is that he wrote it as this is how she is all the time.
Yeah.
You have to sort of always be in that heightened, like, okay, so I'm 11. I'm always going to be 11 in this movie. Everyone else is going to be about a 4. I have to be
Yeah.
11. It seems like that would be a challenge just because it's, you can't really bounce off people in the same way. You have to sort of bounce off the walls at the same time.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it really, you do have to like reach a particular pitch and stay there. And it did feel like transcendent at times. Like there were times where I was just out of my body and just doing it.
Yeah.
And then I would just go over to Justin and be like, is it crazy? Is it like so big and so bad? And he was like, no, 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 it's funny. And I was like, oh, I hope so. Because, there are times, and usually that does happen when you're doing a scene with like heavy emotion where there's crying and you're going, or you're very angry and your primal instinct takes over. So it was really weird to have that experience of just being like outside myself and then coming back and being like, am I embarrassing myself
Yeah.
right
Oh, no,
now?
you're definitely like, I have to trust Justin and I know him, so I trust him. And
Yeah.
like, okay, this seems like a thing he's a bit of an expert on, so I trust him that this sounds like it's gonna work. And but it's like
Yeah.
anything else, like you said, like it could be a huge, big emotional like argument between a husband and a wife, and you're like, was this unintentionally funny? Like was it the emotion I was
Yeah.
going for? Because you're doing it maybe in pieces, maybe there's coverage, so you're doing it like this. There's enough things that you may not know. Like, I think I did it right, but how does it look to you? You wrote the thing, you're standing there. It's interesting just to know like how many cooks are sort of there to make sure that this very natural feeling thing is natural, even though it's just wholly unnatural.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then just it's also interesting when you think about like preparing for a role like this, because it isn't necessarily like I need to go like walk in this person's shoes, because it's not meant to be that type of movie. But I can imagine just like reading the script a second or a third time and just going, okay, I need to do this point, or like turning to like Jason and be like, you think when I do that, just like having like a sounding board is probably really important, just like even at home, like, I'm married to you, come here, tell me, does this sound like it would work? Because it is, you have to take it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it that you don't know until you get into the moment. Most of it worked. And then there were a couple of things where it was like, could this be a little bit better? And they were really open to finessing things a little bit and making it work a little bit better. But it mostly was pretty much set like on the page. They did a really good job. Yeah. And like you were saying, I do trust Justin so much to especially with like really wacky comedies.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
I mean, when I was talking to him, I was like, he let Kevin Smith turn him into a walrus. Like, he's willing to go play.
Yeah.
How do you know like how big to go? Like, obviously you prepare, like you come in with like your interpretation of the character, and hopefully Justin has the same one. But I'm sure over the years there's been sets where you're like, oh, they thought something very different. We have to figure this out now. Like, how do you determine, especially here, because you have to be big? Like you said, what if I'm too big, or what if I'm not big enough? How do you pick the starting point, essentially?
I just have kind of an internal meter, I guess, where I know what feels right and what feels comfortable. And I mean, I'm lucky to get to be a little bit choosy about what I do. So if I read a character and I'm not 100% sure who the person is or what I would want to do, I just don't do it, because there's someone who's going to be better. And if I've read something and I know that it's right for me and I know who that person is, it's like, when you're forcing something, when you're trying to convey an emotion that isn't natural. And I get the same sort of feeling. So it is really hard with me to work with directors who are like, just bump it up a little bit, like maybe telegraph this moment a little bit more, because it can feel very unnatural to me.
I mean, and it's funny because you say that you're a little bit picky, and I think that's awesome. But at the same time, I feel like you're so well liked in that everyone has something nice to say about you, that you definitely could be someone who's like, she was in 12 movies this year. And 7 were good and 3 were fine and 1 or 2 weren't so good. But like every year you can count on those 12 movies that Melanie is in. And I think it's actually kind of cool that you're like, I could do this, but someone's going to do it better, and like, let them do it better. Like I feel like that is not the common thought process in Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I remember I read a script a while ago, and I won't name it, but I was a big fan of the director and I liked the script a lot. But I just was like, this is not coming to me naturally. I've tried to force myself into it, and it's just not happening. And I wrote her a letter, the director, where I was like, I want to work with you and I love the script, but this is not, someone's going to do this a lot better than I am. I'm not going to be good, or I'll be fine, but it's not, you deserve better. And she thanked me so much. She was like, that's the greatest letter I've ever gotten, because I found someone who was perfect. And thanks for like respecting it. You're always scared that you're rejecting someone. But I think when it's for that reason, when you're just like, I think you deserve someone who's going to like do the best job they can. Like, I know when something is for me, and a lot of different things are for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, like, there it is. That's what I think makes this such an interesting role, is that I think people may go, I kind of know what she does. There's there's an indie drama quality to like an actor that you sometimes feel like, okay, I feel like this is a movie that I'm gonna cry at, but it's gonna be a little quirky. Like, she's gonna be in it. I know that. And then turn around and have this, or like the Adam McKay movie coming up. It's like, well, no, like, comedy is still an art form, to do it well. Like, you can be naturally funny in life and be a terrible like comedic actor. Just like you can be.
True.
There were plenty of actors who are just serious as a heart attack, and then once in a while they'll make a comedy and they're like, holy shit, this person's hilarious, because it's a skill, it's a talent.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Jeff Wells, the esteemed Jeff Wells, once called me a constant portrayer of morose and dispirited types.
Well, what a surprise. He has an opinion that's rather bad.
Yeah, exactly. What a surprise. But I was like, that's interesting. That's not what I think I am at all. But I know exactly what you mean. And it's funny, like when you brought up Don't Look Up when you're talking about this, because I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio was one of those actors who's so great. He's just so truthful. He's such a great dramatic actor. And then when he does a comedy, you're like, holy shit, you're that funny. And I keep forgetting.
And it makes sense, because I read an early draft of that script, so like I have an idea of where he's going with it. But also, like, I'm friendly with Bruce Dern, and he told me a story about like being on set on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and like listening to the ways that they, that he and like Brad Pitt like interact with Tarantino. And apparently like DiCaprio is very like, I want to know as much as I can about this. I like, give me as much information as I can, and I'm going to work on it. And that makes sense. Like, that would make you able to do almost anything, because you're like, give me all the information. I'm a human being. I understand the concept of being funny or being paranoid or anxious. I can figure that out. It's such an interesting thing, because there are plenty of actors who are great, but are also just like, I'll figure it out. We'll do it wrong first, and then I'll do it right eventually.
Exactly. He's very meticulous. I played his wife in Don't Look Up, and we were supposed to have grown up together and, like gone to college together and known each other for many years. And the accent that he constructed was so specific. So I came on board, and then there was a dialect coach, Francie Brown, who was amazing. And she was like, so here's the accent you're doing. I was like, oh my God, like, really? It's like regionally specific down to like the town, but it was what he had decided. So I was listening to all these recordings of Leo doing this accent like perfectly, of course. And I was like, all right.
You almost have to appreciate that someone who like basically lives on a yacht with supermodels, like when he decides to act, like makes it as much of a job as he can, as opposed to like, I'm gonna show up and like shoot a gun and you'll film me from behind because I'm not gonna be there most of the time. Like, I almost respect the like, no, this is gonna be my job. Like, this is what I'm doing for the next year.
Well, he's very good at his job. And also, I have to say, like, I think that those are the moments that the paparazzi is able to see him, as when he's on a yacht or whatever.
Nobody catches
he's a very grounded. Yeah, people don't catch him at home watching, like, looking at Zillow, which is one of his favorite things.
Which is amazing, because you want to hope that it's also like affordable housing in a way. But also like it's affordable to him, and you're like, well, I want to see those houses too. But
you can ask him anything about Los Angeles architecture, real estate. He knows everything, every price point, every neighborhood, everything.
Which I know we have to wrap up, but it is just funny that everyone forgets that the people who become super successful and have like access to everything, like,
Mm.
you know, weren't always like Brad Pitt was a poor dude who showed up in Hollywood,
Yeah,
and like DiCaprio was a child actor who had nothing at the beginning. Like there
nothing
was
was
a point.
raised by hippies in
Yeah.
Hollywood. Yeah, yeah.
So
I
there
think
is,
people do forget that. They do
yeah,
forget that like actors are not just formed and put on the planet with like endless resources and like like people really a lot of people come from nothing and
exactly.
work really really hard and
Well, and you work really hard. So I wanted to end on a compliment, and you should be very
thanks.
proud of this. I feel like it's very much a throwback comedy in the way of just like I told Justin, he agreed. He was like, it's a good version of what would have been like a bad sitcom, like the person
Yeah,
is a ghost, and you're like, yeah, I've seen that, but it's so charming, and a lot of that is due to you. So I just wanted to congratulate you.
thanks. That's really sweet. Thank you. And thanks for watching it. That's really nice.
Of course, my pleasure, and I look forward to what comes next, and I'm going to fall asleep eventually, but not yet.
Okay. Yes, yes. I hope you have a great sleep.
I'm looking forward to that plane ride tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, I bet. God.
First time I've ever said it. But awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Okay. Thank you.